Hello, hello, hello. I am the Linux Mensch. Some people seem to think that Manjaro has a problem, and it does. But you know what? Arch Linux has a problem too. Now, don't get me wrong. I love Arch Linux, and Arch Linux is my favorite distribution. And most of my videos are about Arch Linux. And as a matter of fact, I have 4 computers in my home. That is 4 bare metal computers. Forget about the virtual machines. And in my 4 bare metal computers, 3 of them are running pure Arch Linux. One of them is running pure Arch Linux with the Cinnamon desktop, and that's the computer my wife uses. I have another computer that I only use for watching videos, and it's running pure Arch Linux with the Qtile window manager. And then my main production machine computer is running pure Arch Linux with the awesome window manager. So 3 of my bare metal computers are running pure Arch Linux. My 4th computer, bare metal computer, is running pure Debian. So I love Arch Linux, but Arch Linux has a problem too. Now, the problem that people claim that Manjaro has, and it's true, is that Manjaro is based on Arch Linux, but they have their own repository. So in Arch Linux, there's many updates every day. So in my Arch Linux system, I update my computer at least once a day, or I should say my computers, at least once a day. And actually, sometimes I update my computers 2 or 3 times a day. It's easy. I just go into the terminal and I update it. It's quick, it's fast, it's easy. Most of the time, I don't have to reboot my computer. I only reboot my computer after a kernel update, which happens at least once a week, sometimes twice a week in pure Arch Linux. Now, in Manjaro, so like I said, in pure Arch Linux, there's many updates every day. There's updates all day long if you want. In Manjaro, Manjaro has its own repository, so it takes the packages from the Arch Linux repository, they put it in their own repository, they hold them back for 2 weeks, they test them, and then they release them. And if you're running Manjaro, when you do get an update, your updates are coming from the Manjaro repository, not directly from the Arch Linux repository. And Manjaro claims to do this, their claim to fame. The reason for doing this is that they claim that Manjaro is more stable than pure Arch Linux because they're holding packages back for 2 weeks and they're testing them. Now, Manjaro gives you the ability to download and build packages from the AUR. And Manjaro has 3 official flavors and I think 4 or 6 community editions. And it doesn't matter which edition you're running for Manjaro. In Manjaro, they have a GUI package manager called PAMAC, P-A-M-A-C, PAMAC, not to be confused with Pac-Man. And sure, in Manjaro, you can go into the terminal and just download packages or do updates from using the Pac-Man command, but your package is still coming from the Manjaro repositories, not directly from Arch Linux. But like I said, Manjaro has a GUI package manager or a front end. It's called PAMAC. And it's easy to download packages from there. It's easy to do updates. It's kind of nice to use, even though I prefer the terminal. And in PAMAC, you can toggle on or off. That's, if you're running Manjaro. In PAMAC, you can toggle on or off the AUR. So you can keep the AUR off. But if you toggle it on, then you can download packages from the AUR, and PAMAC will easily download, build, and install those packages for you, so you don't have to go into the terminal and build them yourself like in Arch Linux, or use an AUR helper like many people do in Arch Linux. Now, when I'm using Arch Linux, I have a few AUR packages download. And I don't use an AUR helper like Yay or Paru. Now, I have used them in the past, but I don't have them installed on my system right now. And I don't use a lot of AUR packages. So when I want an AUR package, I just build it in the terminal. In my Arch Linux system, I go into the terminal and just download the package and build it manually. I don't use an AUR helper like Yay or Paru, and I don't use a GUI application like Pamac, because you can also use Pamac in pure Arch Linux as well. Even though the Manjaro developers are the ones that created Pamac, and Pamac comes installed by default in your Manjaro system. So anyways, in Manjaro, the problem with Manjaro is that if you go into Manjaro and try to download and build an AUR package, the AUR package could be brand new and up to date, and it might need dependencies of other files and packages that are totally up to date. But those packages and other files, those other dependencies it needs in the Manjaro repository may not be up to date. So there might be a conflict. So you know what I'm saying? Like the AUR package you're trying to download and build from the AUR in Manjaro is brand new and totally up to date. But those other files and packages it needs, those dependencies it needs in Manjaro may not be up to date. So here's an example. There's a package that I use that I have in my system, in my Arch Linux system. I have a package from the AUR. It's called Remmina. And I'm using the one from the AUR, and I built it or I downloaded and installed it manually in the terminal in my pure Arch Linux system. Now, in Manjaro also has access to that AUR package, Remmina, the exact same build that was released on the most current version of Remmina as of today was released just over a week ago on December 22nd. So on December 22nd, this Remmina was released and built in the AUR. But it builds in Arch Linux, but it won't build in Manjaro. Now you can see it in Manjaro. You can go into the Pamac GUI package manager, and you can see it there, and you go to download it, but it won't download, it won't build, it won't install. And I suspect, and I'm just guessing, I suspect it's because some of its dependencies that it needs, those other files and packages that it needs, those dependencies have not been updated in the main Manjaro repository. So Manjaro has a problem. But I'd like to say that Linux has a problem too, because these little problems happen in all Linux distributions, not the same one that I'm talking about now. But, you know, Debian has packages that are really old and may not be suitable for you. There are some things that you can't get in Debian, like you can't get Qtile. The Qtile window manager is not available in Debian. So you could say Linux has a problem. And of course, Windows has a problem too. Besides Windows being a memory hog and making your computer run slow and having spyware, the updates in Windows are atrocious. You could be updating your Windows system for an hour or two. And then there's sometimes, many times in Windows, there's a failed update. So you could say all computers have problems, no matter what computer program you're using. And you know what? Apple has problems too. Now, I've never owned an Apple computer, but I have an Apple phone and I have an Apple iPad. And there's problems with that too, but I'm not going to get into that. And I'm kind of getting off track. So I could say that any operating system has problems. And generally speaking, I could say Linux has problems. And even Arch Linux has problems. And I'm going to show you a problem that Arch Linux has. right now. I opened up Firefox and I'm at a website called Remmina. Now, Remmina is an application that I use in my Linux system at home so I can log into our Windows 10 server at work. And when I use it, I can log into our Windows 10 cloud server at work and I have access to everything. It's just like I'm running Windows in my Linux computer, and it's like I'm at work. I have access to all our files at work, all our applications, to MS Word, to MS Excel, and to the specialized computer system that we use at work. There's a specialized software program that we use at work. I have access to that. I have access to all the files, my emails, everything, to Outlook, everything. And I can log in from home in Arch Linux using Remmina, and I can also log in from my Debian computer using Remmina. And Remmina is the program that I use, and this is it right here. If we go to news, the latest release is 1.433. That's the most current release of Remmina, 1433. I'm going to go to Arch Linux, and I'm going to type in Remmina. And I'm going to click it on. Here it is here. 1433-3. Arch Linux in their main repository released it on October 14th. This doesn't work in my system. Now I can install it, but when I go to use it, I can't log into my cloud service at work. It just doesn't work. Now in my Debian computer, I can log into the cloud service at work because it's using an older version of Remmina that works. But in Arch Linux, I can't use this. Now, why? Why isn't it working? I suspect it has something to do with dependencies. I'm suspecting, and I'm just guessing, that the Arch Linux maintainers in Arch Linux haven't tested this particular update that happened in October, and it's missing some dependencies. It's missing something in here, and that's why it's not working. I'm just guessing. Now, the interesting thing is, if I go to the AUR, now in the AUR, there's an AUR version of Remmina. Click it on. 1433 release 73. This was released a week ago on December 22nd. And this version from the AUR, I went into my Arch Linux system, into the terminal, and manually installed and built this version. And I didn't use an AUR helper like Yay or Paru. I just did it myself in the terminal. And it works. And when I have this installed, I can log into my cloud system at work, and it works. It's fantastic. Now, the thing is that in Manjaro, neither one works. So Manjaro also has this Remmina in it. They have this Remmina in it. And I can download it and install it, but I can't log into my cloud system at work through Manjaro. And in Manjaro through PMAC, using the AUR, you can download this exact version in Manjaro through the AUR, but it won't build. It doesn't build. So in Manjaro, neither one works. In pure Arch Linux, the one in their official repository doesn't work for me, but this one from the AUR did build, and it is working for me. So what's my point? Yes, Manjaro has a problem, but so does Arch Linux. And my question is why doesn't this version work in the Arch Linux official repository? Why isn't this working for me? Why does the one from the AUR work? The other thing I want to just mention before I close the video, I don't want this to be a long video. If you go into the wiki, the Arch Linux wiki, and go into the search and type in AUR. And the reason why I'm bringing you here is that one of the main complaints that people have about Manjaro is that they hold packages back for 2 weeks. So in Manjaro, if you try to download and build a package that just got updated, that's fully up to date, and it's using dependencies that should be up to date, but they're not up to date because the Manjaro main repository is holding them back for 2 weeks, you won't be able to build a package and there'll be conflict. So that is the main criticism of Manjaro. But the thing is that this Arch user repository, this is what the Arch Linux developers say. If you scan down right here, look at this. Warning, right here in the pink. Warning, AUR packages are user-produced content. These package builds are completely unofficial and have not been thoroughly vetted. Any use of the provided files is at your own risk. So the AUR packages, the developers of Arch Linux take no responsibility for them, and it's up to you, the user, you and me, if we're using an AUR package, to make sure that it doesn't have any viruses in it or malware in it or anything that's going to harm your computer. Because the Arch Linux developers take no responsibility for it. So, what am I saying? If your main complaint about Manjaro is that you might not be able to use AUR packages, they might not build properly because they're totally up to date and they need to build and work properly. They need dependencies that are totally up to date, and some of those dependencies may not be up to date in Manjaro because they're held back for 2 weeks. Hey, the AUR is up for grab. It's up to the user to make sure the AUR functions properly. And that's it. Does Manjaro have a problem? Yes, it does. I don't deny it. Does Arch Linux have a problem? Yes, it does. Even though Arch Linux is my favorite distribution. Does Debian have a problem? Yes, Debian, although stable, it's running like really old packages. Some of the packages are 2 years old. And there's still quite a few things you can't get in Debian. Like you can't get Qtile, window manager in Debian. So does Debian have a problem? Yes. Does Windows have a problem? Well, Windows has a big problem. Does Linux have a problem? Yes, it does. All operating systems have problems. Even Apple. Does Apple have problems? Yes. Do Android phones and tablets have problems? Yes. All operating systems have a problem. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like it and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Thank you for watching. Until next time, I am the Linux Mensch.